Hi everyone, my name is Cheung, and I'm currently a second year student here at Stanford University. I know it's that time of the year where a lot of you guys are probably looking at where you guys want to apply to college, looking at the application process itself, and in general deciding between the US, UK, or Canada. Personally, I've applied to all three of these places, and I just wanted to give you guys some tips and tricks, to share my experience of what that whole process was like and why I ended up choosing the US for my studies. So let's jump straight into it. First, let's talk about applying to the US. It's quite a complicated process most of the time. The majority of your applications will go through this platform called the Common App, the Common Application. And what that does is that there's a big essay that you have to write, and that's a personal essay. It's an essay about you, and it's not really about any subject. It's more so colleges know about what the personality and what kind of person you are, and that's really what they're looking for. That essay took me many rewrites, redrafts, and I spent countless hours on it. So applying to the US, that alone is already pretty hard. But on top of that, many universities will ask you to answer their own questions as well. And so these are usually like 250-word responses, kind of like short essays in a way. But they also require you to put a lot of thought into it. And there are some universities, such as UChicago, who are notorious for giving you really weird questions, like, is a hot dog or sandwich? Please explain. And things like that you just really don't encounter all that much in school in Hong Kong. So when you write essays like this, it really does come as a surprise, and that's why my biggest tip for applying to the US is honestly start early and make sure you know everything that you need to do. Because the last thing you want is to be in the middle of writing an application, being ready to submit it, and realizing that you left out an entire essay. So make sure that you really look into what's needed for your application to any US college, because it is definitely a more convoluted process. Next, let's talk about applying to the UK. Compared to going to the US, this is very straightforward. It's one essay that basically just asks you about your experience with the subject, because in the UK you apply to a specific subject or a program. So it asks you, what experience have you had doing this? Why are you interested in it? And so it's quite a simple, around 500-word essay, I'd say, and that's kind of all you need in the UK. The main difference between the US and the UK is that in the US, because you have those essay questions, you're able to showcase more of your personality. And that's how they kind of distinguish between their different candidates or their different students. Whereas in the UK, there's a lot more focus on your actual grade. So I'd say in general for the US, grades matter less, personality and your essay writing matters more. Whereas in the UK, it's kind of the opposite direction. Again, this is a generality. Of course, grades matter a lot in the US still, but in general, in the UK, it's more to do with your grades than your essay, from my experience. And applying to Canada is actually very similar to applying to the UK. It's kind of a mix in between, because some universities will still ask you some questions, especially if you're applying to certain dorms. For example, University of Toronto, when you apply, they only ask you for some very basic things. I don't even think they ask you for an essay. But once you get in, you have to apply to a specific dorm or a specific college within that university. And that application process then involves, quite a few short essays, a few short response questions. And so that's where I'd say, to sum up, the US, there's a lot more work in applying. The UK, there's a bit less. And Canada sits somewhere in the middle. Next, let's talk about what academics and student life is like, across these three different places. Because I'm sure that that's a key determining factor of where you'd want to study. And so let's begin by talking about the US. So on an academic side, the US is very flexible. A lot of US schools are now adopting a liberal arts kind of curriculum, and what that means is that they really want you to be well-rounded people. And it's really easy to switch your major or your subject, or to just explore a lot of different things. For example, the past year, because Stanford itself is a very liberal arts college, I've been able to take golf for credit. I'm currently doing conducting, like musical conducting, which is really cool. And I've been taking a few writing classes and some public speaking classes on top of my computer science major. I'd say in general, universities in the UK are a lot more subject focused. So if you apply to a specific program or a specific subject, like let's say economics, then it's very hard to fish out of it. And the majority of your coursework will just revolve around economics and its surrounding subjects, maybe a little bit of political science, a little bit of math, but in general it's really focused towards economics. Whereas in the US, a lot of universities don't even ask you to declare your major. In fact, I came in here as a math major, as an econ major, and now I'm switching over to computer science because I've been able to explore so much more, and because universities in the US really encourage you to do that exploration. Of course, there's a trade-off in the sense that maybe you don't know as much about one subject, or when you graduate, you don't know as much about your specific major compared to your UK counterparts. But I'd say that in general, in my experience anyways, when I graduated from secondary school in Hong Kong, I didn't really know what I was going to do. And so that's why I really appreciated how in the US I was able to explore a bit more before deciding on my major, which is now computer science. If I went to the UK, I would have just stick with math or economics, and I wouldn't have discovered that actually I quite like computer sciences. And so I'd say that's one of the main differences between the US and the UK education system. Again, Canada sits somewhere in between. Some Canadian universities require you to declare your major going in. For example, UBC on their application when I did it, they actually asked you to fill out your major, what's your major, and you apply to, I believe, a specific school or a program as well. But from what I've heard anyways, it's easier to switch around than in the UK. And so yeah, like in the application process, Canada sits in between the US and the UK. So I hope these tips have helped you guys in getting a better sense and a better idea of what applying to colleges and what the college experience is like in these different parts of the world. And I hope that this helps you in making your decision for where you want to go for university. Thank you.